Okay.
Good to go.
Hi, Liz.
Thanks. Good morning. I want to call this Trees and Green Infrastructure meeting, virtual meeting to order at 10:03 a.m. on August 20th. I'm going to have a couple comments, but I want to save that for the update by chair and just go straight into the roll call and approval of minutes and all that. So I'll just call your names as I see you on screen. Andrea Hoffman.
Here.
Bob Van Horn. You're muted.
Here, sorry.
Katie Downs.
Here.
Elise Burns.
Here.
Liza Trey.
Here.
And Liz Lingo is with us today. So we have a quorum. Thank you all for signing on. The other day I sent out the minutes for July 16th. Were any comments on those or corrections or anything?
No.
Actually, Joan was here. I don't know where Joan went. She was here a few minutes ago. Her connection must have gone down again. But so if she comes back, I'll acknowledge that. Anyway, she did a very thorough job as usual on the minutes. So if there aren't any comments or corrections, can I get a motion to approve?
Motion to approve the minutes of July 16th.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so the minutes are approved. We don't have any correspondence as far as I know. So the update, I actually have two updates. One is to say that it's really unfortunate, this deja vu we're in. It was only 2 months ago that we started having live meetings again, and now here we are. So I don't know how long this is going to last. It's a little different this time in that it's not because of any restrictions about meetings. It's just that the rule is you have to wear a mask if you're in City Hall, and the mayor thought it was better to return to virtual meetings rather than having everybody sit around the table with masks on at City Hall. But because we're not in a state of emergency on the state level, there does have to be an anchor point for a public meeting so that if anyone from the public wants to show up in person, they can do so. So that's why Liz is in the commissioner's room. One of us will always have to be in the commissioner's room as an anchor point, and then the rest on virtually. That's how the mayor wants to do it. He wants us all to be on virtually. We'll be doing the same thing this afternoon with our mayor and commissioners meeting. And honestly, I don't know how long it'll last. The numbers in the state are not going in the right direction. It's actually up to nearly 8% positive tests right now, whereas in July it was like 1%. So, and now that schools are starting back, I don't see that improving anytime soon. So it looks like we're stuck. Now, the other way we're stuck is that because of virtual meetings, we have to stick to an hour. So if we go 5 minutes over, I'm not going to worry too much about it. But we don't have the same flexibility that we would have for in-person meetings. That's the reason that the new business item was taken off the agenda, because it's going to be hard enough for us to get through the items that are on here in an hour. But anyway, the only other update I have, just to take 2 seconds to tell you some good news, is an update on the commemorative tree donations. We had 2 more just this week. So I did a tally, and since the beginning of the fiscal year, April 1st, because I think the last tally I did was in March, we've had 11 donations totaling $5,990, so just under $6,000 in the last 5 months. So it's people are hearing about it, even though we really haven't done any publicity about it. People are just still know about it and are contributing, on a monthly basis. So we've got, I think, 8 new leaves. Joan's not on, but I believe 8 leaves came back from the engraver last week and have been put up. And then now we've got 4 more that are going off, or 3 more that are going off to the engraver this week. So I guess we should move right into old business. And I'm going to actually change the order, partly because of the timing is so important, but also because one feeds into the other, and that is talk about number B, the priority plannings for the year. I had sent out the list that Liz had sent to me a few months ago, and then you all may remember we were talking about this in June, and we didn't really resolve it in June. And I asked Liz, can we continue it to the next month? And she said, well, yes, but you got to finish it in July because I got to order the plans. And then Liz wasn't with us in July, and I don't think we did finalize it. So I guess one thing I want to ask Liz is, to what extent have plantings already been ordered or planned for the fall, and where are they? And then what opportunity do we have to add to that?
I would say it's a 50-50 if you want to add to it right now. So it depends on the tree species and what the nurseries have. The availability has been pretty limited, but now is the time when things would have to be ordered for the fall or early winter. So any landscaping projects we would have, which are minor, are being done right now, planned, finalized, etc.
Okay. So which ones have you already, so some of the what I recall is that there were going to be at least 4 street trees, like on Munson, and are those definite for the fall? Are those already ordered?
Yes, those are already ordered. And then I have some work to do at the Italian garden that was a result of the streetscape there. So that's in the planning stages as well.
Okay. How many on Munson?
I don't have it memorized.
But at least 4, right?
Probably probably more than, maybe a couple more than that.
Okay. And then, do you know about how many at the Italian garden?
No, that probably won't be any trees. That's more landscaping.
Okay,
We're pretty.
yeah, I'm just looking at tree. And how many ultimately went in at Lake Avenue? Is it 15?
I don't have that memorized either.
Okay.
I think it was like around 12 or so.
Yeah, I don't think it was quite 15.
Because one of the things, and I realize that, and we, you know, the cost of it is outside the scope of the discussion today, but I know that earlier in the year, we talked about the fact that the commemorative tree could support 17,000 in planting trees this year. And so I know we have more to do. In other words, the ones we've already got for Lake Avenue and even if we count the Munson street trees, there's more we can do. But we just need to know, and we need to basically decide now, you know, where are those, and you know what, and Liz needs to tell us, you know, what's possible to still do for the fall, because by the time I guess the spring plantings are done, we're essentially into the next fiscal year. So if we want to get them done this fiscal year, we have to do them this fall.
Well, what about the bathhouse street?
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. Would the Delaware Avenue ones go, would they go in this fall, or would they not go in till next spring after that's finished?
I have not been updated on that project.
Okay, well, but the trees that we're putting in aren't actually at the project. They were going to be down Delaware to compensate for the loss at the bathrooms themselves. So does that matter?
I guess it doesn't matter when we do them.
Is that something we should do this fall? Should we go ahead and put that one in the mix? Because that's about 10, I think, is what we identified.
Yeah.
Had you guys decided what species you wanted to plant? The same, different?
What was planted there before?
Mainly the ocean blocks are mostly pear, pine, and London plains. So
Well,
I probably wouldn't recommend any of them.
I've noticed that willow oaks are actually doing okay. Well, at 3 Queen Street, willow oaks are doing okay.
Yeah, but I don't
kind of protected.
And we don't have the
But if it's
width.
down the street some, those
Yeah,
could work.
I don't think we have the right of way width for a large tree like that. They'll have to be smaller trees.
How about an Armstrong Maple?
I'd be leery because people think that the upright trees, just because they don't have the canopy spread, are the same, but I'd be leery of doing them in like the 3-foot right of way too. I think they'd be good for something like Bayard, where we have 6 or so feet width in that in the median, but we need a more narrow tree. That's kind of when I'd look for those.
Okay, 'cause even those real skinny.
Yeah,
ones,
because they still
I
have the
think
same,
Armstrong's one of
right?
those
The
real skinny
Armstrongs
ones.
still have the same root structure as.
Oh well, that's true.
Yeah, so that's kind of, I know, it's like deceiving. But the upright trees in general are good in those tight spaces.
Right.
That's why we've used some of the Summer Tower red buds, because not only do they have the smaller root system, but they're upright, so kind of doubles. Well, if you guys just say you want to do all the same species, I can work on it. Or if we want to do a variety of species.
You want to do a variety?
S-
I mean,
I like it better when streets have, like, each block has the same tree, but
really?
I mean, there's a bunch of different, you can alternate trees, you can do one side, one tree, one side, the other. There's a bunch of different configurations municipalities use for street tree planting.
I mean, I like the idea of some variety, only if only to, protect against something happening to, but
Right.
I also think that there should be a pattern. So the every other is kind of a nice way to do it.
Okay.
rather than-
Yeah.
We can do it every other. That works for me.
Okay.
I really like the idea of that street because I think it could really use it.
Mhm.
Okay, so then do you have a sense of what you might use, or you'll just start looking?
Now I'll have to go through because we'll have to have salt tolerant, small species, and upright. So it's a pretty narrow.
Oh, Liz, you could use Green Mile Magnolia virginianus.
Okay.
But if
Yeah,
you take the ones that are specified for me, I'll be pissed off.
what nursery are you getting them from?
That could be a really nice addition this year, actually. Andrew, I'm glad you brought that up, because between the Lake Avenue trees and the Munson Street trees, and the Delaware Avenue tree, I think it's a nice program for this.
Do we not want any evergreens? So a juniper or something like that is a no.
I mean, I don't know.
I like more of a shade tree, or more, I don't look at it as an evergreen as a street tree per se. That's just my opinion.
I'd like more of a shade tree too.
I do too.
Okay, no evergreens then.
I mean, when you're walking your dog, sometimes it's nice to, stand under the shade for, 30 seconds.
Well, Magnolia virginianus would fit both.
Yeah.
They would be evergreen-ish and
Yeah.
Evergreen-ish. I like that.
Yeah.
Semi-evergreen.
semi-evergreen.
Yeah.
So, Liz, do you have other fall plantings aside from what we've talked about that just to tell us about, or would this be it? I mean, it's a lot. And do you have the staff? Do you have there's time to get these in, and there's people to do it?
That's been a significant problem this year. So things that were supposed to be done just weren't able to get done because of staffing. Every business, every company, and even the city is really struggling. So we'll give them everything we want, and if it has to be scaled down, it has to be scaled down.
Okay. All right. Do you have others? Are there other planting plans this fall, or is this it?
We're trying to work on one other thing, so I'm not sure.
Okay.
It's kind of it's still in the works, so we'll see if it comes to fruition or not.
Okay. Well, I think this is a good lineup, so I'm pleased about that. So if there's no more on plantings, then we can go back to tree mapping, because the reason I think it was good to take it out of order is that the ones that we are putting in this fall would go on the map as well as the ones that are already there. And I know that Liz had sent me a list some months ago of some of the ones from the commemorative tree. The problem is that the list, I don't think, is complete. And part of the problem there is that she's having to go back and sort of recreate history. And for the ones that were planted very early in the program, it takes some legwork to figure out, which ones were commemorative tree and which ones were just city planning. But aside from that, I do believe that a map would be not only very useful for contributors to know where their money was going, but just a good thing to have as a tool for not only getting future donations, but to just create a record. But I don't really know how to do it, and I have not had time to pursue it. Liz has talked about it being, you can do it in iTree. I've heard that you can also just do it with Google Maps and drop a dot, at each of the addresses. But how do we get that done? Because I know this hasn't advanced very far, because I don't think we have anybody really working on it. Any ideas? Don't everyone speak at once. Liz, do you think the iTree map is intuitive enough that we would be able to start there, or what?
Google would be easier. You just wouldn't have the information as much. I mean, maybe you could do just a separate spreadsheet that goes along with that or something if you want to put something about the trees themselves.
Yeah, well, you could do that sort of by maybe, I don't know, color coordinated dots or with a list on the side. Yeah, I actually hadn't been thinking that there would be a specific tree note on the map itself, but there is a need for that to be separate. There's no question. There's a need for a corresponding list. But again, I don't know if anybody wants to tackle this Google map. I mean, if so, we can start with the ones I have and try to pick up, try to pick up the ones that I don't have listed yet. But any other ideas? Otherwise, we just have to, if anybody wants to start exploring. I mean, I would if I had time, and I still intend to, but I just have not done it yet with the tree ordinance and everything.
Susan, I'll give it a try. And then if I can't figure it out, I'll call around some younger colleagues of mine that can help me figure it out. But I'm just going to play around and just make up stuff as I go along to see if I can put the pins in the right place and add a label or something like that. So let me experiment. And then next meeting, I'll give you my update.
Okay. And I can.
Thank you.
I need to send you the list, but if you're doing that to sort of experiment, you can also start out.
Yeah,
the
I'll
first
experiment. Yeah,
because we know we're doing ones there and Lake Avenue and just see how that looks.
I mean, in the worst case scenario, I'll contact Google and have them help walk me through it.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm sure they have a help desk and, somebody that helps 50 plus. If you're 50 plus, hit 1, press 1.
Thank you, Liza.
Liz, how hard would it be to sort of to get the list fleshed out of what's been planted for Commemorative Tree? I know that you said that you got to go back and do some digging for that.
I'm sorry, what for when? Like going forward, like this year going forward?
No, it'd be from anything that's been planted for Commemorative Tree since the beginning, but I don't know. I'm trying to think. We started it in the fall of 19, so then the first trees, I guess, would have been the following, fiscal year starting 2020.
I mean, I remember that the majority, because we didn't have separate budget items for it then, because the city fronted all the money. But it was all Rehoboth Avenue replacements, pretty much.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Like this year going forward is pretty simple. I have all that tracked on a separate document.
So then the ones from before are the Rehoboth Avenue ones.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but we obviously, the city, we planted a lot more than what the Commemorative Tree.
Oh, I understand that. So we'd have to
for.
basically just pick some to designate as part of Commemorative Tree.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the forest pansies or something like that, and then.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, if we can fill in with that, that'd be great, because I'd love to be able to have that map. And then that map would reside on the website, I guess. I think the city said they'd be willing to put it up on our committee website. So, okay. So anything else on mapping or priority plantings? Okay, then we can move into the tree ordinance. There are still, and I'm actually pleased with the timing, because I think we probably have enough time here to go through this. I'm pleased that we've gotten as far as we've gotten. I feel like it truly is getting there, but there's still a couple of issues that we haven't weighed in on, or that we haven't resolved. And not that our Not that our resolution of them is definitive, because the next step is it goes back to the mayor and commissioners and anything can happen. But I wanted to be able to, frankly, our committee has done more work on it than anybody else. And so I like that. And I like the fact that we're all so committed to it. And I want to be able to include our input. When it goes back to the mayor and commissioners, I'm going to have all the input there. So the Parks and Shade Tree and the Environment Committee and some of the other people that have weighed in, all of their feedback is going in with that. But I do feel like that this current draft is sort of getting us there. I just want to make sure that it meets the goals that to revise it in the first place. And I think those were really twofold. One was to make it simpler to administer.
Mm-hmm.
So part of the issue there is that, I know Parks and Shade Tree liked the law oversight version because it was 8 pages, so they thought it was simpler, but it was missing a lot. I mean, even Liz had told me that it was harder for her to implement because it was missing so much. So the one in front of you, the tree ordinance part of it, ignore the first part because that's about city trees, is like, twice as maybe 14 pages or so, or from 6 to 20. So 14 pages. But it covers things in more detail. And I think, given where we are, I think that's probably necessary. But at the same time, we want to make it simple to understand. So while it may not be fewer words, it needs to be simple to implement and simple to understand what the rules are. And then the other thing we were going for, I think, was quantity over quality, quality over quantity. Because there are areas in here where people can take down trees more easily than they could do today with the current ordinance. But there's also provisions for trees having to be canopy, trees having to be native, replacements having to be in those categories. So fewer replacements, but good quality trees. So, that's what I want to know. Is that where we want to be? Are there any gaps in what we've got here that are a problem? Because I think there's some indication to me that it means more trees will come down, but that might not be a bad thing if it allows people to remove junk trees and replace them with better trees. So, let's see. So let me just start. I'm going to use this cover memo to go through because I was trying to summarize there the major changes. And protected trees are now defined as 8-inch DBH rather than 4. So that's one of those categories of quality over quantity, that we're not protecting anything less than 8. There's been an attempt to add in much more information, which actually came from the Law Oversight Committee's ordinance for protection during construction.
Mm-hmm.
That's a pretty.
I don't know, and actually that's later on, so I will get to that. I saw it here because it's in definitions. I don't know if it's enough. It reads pretty well, and it's got, it covers equipment on site and protecting the roofs and all that. But I have seen some other ordinances that have even more in terms of an expert needing to come out and create an overall plan, that kind of thing, that I don't know that it has. So I'm not sure we're there yet, but I think that's a great goal. It is protection during construction.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been beefed. But we've added a definition as well as a requirement for native trees. But I'm not sure we ever resolved whether those should be native to Delaware or just native to the Mid-Atlantic or what.
I think that having it native to the Mid-Atlantic would be nice, because there are a lot of species that are more southern trees, and those are some of the species that we should probably be starting to think about planting because of the fact that our temperatures are rising. Mm-hmm. And, that's been a lot of probably what you've heard about, Liz, in your continuing education. But I mean, that's been a lot of what I've heard about, is that we should be starting to consider planting things that are a little more southern.
Well,
I mean, not solely focusing on those, but
they like to use the term sustainable landscapes. So it kind of affects everything from your plant selection, your companion plants, to watering requirements, fertilizer needs, all that good stuff.
yeah.
But yeah, climate change is one of them. That's a part of that. So
But
something
that would still make them native to the Mid-Atlantic, you're saying?
well,
Yes.
Okay.
yeah. I mean, that's
Okay.
from New York down to Virginia. So.
All right, I'll put that in there. An interesting question came up with the minimum tree density. The way it's worded now, of course, and this comes from, I think this was something in law, was that, let's see, that to meet the minimum requirement of 3 per lot, the first one has to be high canopy, the second shall be high canopy or other native tree species, and then the third, any permitted species. So the question came up is, does that second one, does the first one have to also be native? I mean, does the high canopy requirement have to be native? If it's read that way, and it does sound like that because it says the second one shall be high canopy or other native, then the requirement really is that 1 has to be high canopy, 2 have to be native, and the third can be any permitted. Is that the way it's supposed to read? The high canopy is also supposed to be native?
I have no idea, because I always thought all along it's too convoluted, too confusing.
Well, that's what I'm trying to make it,
Well, just the
I mean,
fact that we need
recommendation that came in from the person, she was a member of the Environment Committee who had written to me about this like a year ago, and I just went back and reread her stuff, and she was the one who said, better make it, 2 native, 2, and one of those 2 native then would be the high canopy.
Well, that was also brought up in the Law Oversight Committee, I believe, by Sturgis was part of that. I'm sorry, what line are we on in the draft?
In the draft, I don't have I'm looking at it on the iPad and I don't have my lines.
What
it's 253.23, the minimum tree density, and it's number
scroll back up.
B.
Yeah, because I'm on my Surface, so it's harder.
253-23.
23.
Yeah, and then
Okay.
B.
Okay. Yep. B1.
B1.
The first tree shall be high canopy. The second.
And that's wording straight out of the Law Oversight version. The first tree shall be high canopy. The second shall be high canopy or other native species. And then the third shall be any permitted species. So the question is, the high canopy and the second one both have to be native.
I mean, why don't we make it a little simpler and just say all 3 have to be a permitted species with a minimum of 1 high canopy? I mean, because it's going to be, the list, where do we say something about, hold on. Right up there, there's only there's not going to be a ton of non-natives on the list.
Okay.
So, I don't know. I guess it depends on how much we really want to push planting native trees.
Well, we do, don't we?
But again, and this goes back to all throughout. This is Bob.
Yeah.
Are we keeping the native language in there? Or are we saying Mid-Atlantic, native to the Atlantic? Because I'm wondering how limited we are if we're saying native to Delaware or native to Sussex County or however this.
Oh no! If native ends up being defined in the definitions as native to the Mid-Atlantic, then wherever the word native is used in the ordinance, it would be that.
Right.
Okay, well, and I have a question about that because we do have other references saying native is Delaware. Are we going to change that then?
In the ordinance?
That's the question, right?
You mean in the written ordinance, there are other places that say native to Delaware?
Yeah.
Okay, well then that'll get
Yes.
fixed.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Change the definition.
It's in 2 other places, and of course now I can't find it.
That's okay. That's a good point, but it'll get fixed once we resolve the native definition.
Okay.
And the Mid-Atlantic is New York to Virginia, is what we said? Is that correct?
Well, I
It
know
was,
when I worked in New York City, it was considered the Mid-Atlantic.
Okay.
Should we make, well, yeah.
I know, are you thinking more southern, Katie?
I
than
was
Virginia?
thinking like down to like at least South Carolina.
Yeah, and that does get in that, yeah, South Carolina is not mid-Atlantic.
It's not mid.
But I know I know what you're getting at.
Is there a species you're
Yeah.
thinking
It's
of?
better to go by zones.
Mid-Atlantic is better than just making it Delaware because, you know, there's a lot of stuff that's native to Delaware right now that's probably not going to be native to Delaware in like
Katie,
20 years.
Does it make sense to go by zones, like planting zones? Like, I'm not sure. I live in Maryland, so it is zone 4 and just say species that are tolerable between zones 2 and 6 or 3 and 4.
Probably not, because the zones range from, I mean, like right now we're zone 7B and so is Kansas.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah, then
So we
lose
just don't
our-
want a bunch of wheat planted.
Yeah.
I mean,
The coastal aspect of it,
I'm sorry.
the coastal aspect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, I have to say, if we want this to be future oriented, then we do need to think
Right.
broadly, you know, beyond maybe even the mid-Atlantic, right?
Yeah.
Well, don't forget, the list can be other non-natives. So if there's something we specifically feel should be on there that isn't,
Right.
Well, you're saying it's, well, I'm thinking what you're saying, Liz, is it's native to somewhere else.
yeah, not well
non-native,
native
but
in
it's native to
not
the south,
necessarily
or-
not necessarily like Asian or something like that. Although, you know, a lot of people love Japanese alcovas and the Japanese cherries. So, but I mean, I'm trying to think of like trees that specifically, I don't know, like a silver bell. I don't know if they're native technically to Delaware, so they would
Actually,
maybe be included.
Halesias are native to Delaware.
They are native to Delaware. I'm thinking
Mhm.
they're not in the Delaware recommended trees, though. I don't think.
They're not.
Mm-mm.
And they are high canopy,
Let me think of something
I think.
else.
45 feet plus.
I'm like looking. I can't think of any. I mean, there are things we don't grow here, even though they're native, like beech trees don't do well because of the salt.
Oh yeah, beech trees don't do well.
Yeah.
So, but do we want, the language I heard suggested was that all 3 trees have to be from a list of permitted trees, and one of them has to be high canopy. So do we not then want to say anything about the second and the third, just the high canopy is the only requirement, and then
Well-
that all 3 have to be from a permitted list? Is
If
that
you-
good enough?
If you want, we can just
Saying the second one has to be native, that 2 of them have to be native?
have the high canopy trees be. What was our definition of high canopy? Was it 40 feet or 30?
I think so, yeah.
Well, we could not put
40 or 45.
We could just have that one category maybe just be natives, and we'll call them the native adjacents. If that's a better way. I don't know. I just looked up the Missouri Botanical Garden. It says the native range for the silver bell is southeastern U.S., but that is one that does well here and very easily could be a native tree to Delaware.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the bottom line is there's going to be a list of what's permitted, and it's going to be a comprehensive list, right? Liz, it's going to be.
Well, it'll be hard because we'll have to, I mean, all the natives will be on there, but whether or not we want to include some popular trees that we're probably already overplanted with, like the flowering cherries and the Zelkovas.
Mhm.
So
Right,
that'll
but
be
those
the
wouldn't
question.
be, but that's the reason to have it in 3 lists. Big, you know, canopy, native, other.
Well-
Because only one of them should be the like the cherry, right?
Right.
Well, we don't have to have cherry on the list at all. I mean,
Oh,
if,
okay. All right.
if we don't
Put it
want
on
to.
there? You were thinking about putting it on there or what?
I don't know. I mean, I haven't thought about that one specifically, but now that we're speaking of it, like if we don't want it on the approved trees to be planted, I don't have a problem with that.
I'm just trying to figure out how to give people flexibility and at the same time assure that 2 of the 3 are native / high canopy. One of them's high canopy, and that the high canopy is native, right? Are all the high canopies going to be native?
Well, that's why I said like Zelkova. It's
Right.
not native, but it would be a canopy tree.
Okay, there you go.
Can I ask a question? This may be really dumb. Where do oaks stand in all of this?
Bunch of them are native.
Huh?
I think every single one. Well, there's probably some oaks that wouldn't be on the list right now that aren't native to Delaware, but that are native to the area in general that might be included.
There's some European oaks. I can't think of what they are right now, but there are some European.
English oak.
English oak?
Yeah, I mean English oak is
English.
one.
Yeah.
I think like post is like post oak. I'm
That's what
not sure. Is that?
That's what I'm thinking. I'm not sure it's on the Delaware Post is on the Delaware native species list. I mean, and if you look at the information, technically live oak should grow here too. So,
Well, true.
yeah, I mean, there's no reason they couldn't be on that list.
Right. Actually, that was one of the ones that they talked about in one of the latest conferences that I went to.
Yeah, I mean,
Live oak?
Live oak.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure its range includes like if you look on the range, we're in there.
Right.
For it, but like I don't think I've seen a live oak here. It seems like it would do well, but
Well, maybe, but between now and the end of the process, which is, still probably going to be a few months. I'll bring this up if this is still a dilemma, but maybe Liz, at some point we should draft up a list of the trees that would be on the permitted list in all categories, and we'll just take a look at it and then see the best way to define that in the code. Because we're obviously not putting the list itself is not part of the code. That's intentional to keep.
No, it would be done after
over time.
Yeah, it would be done after the code.
But if we see the list, then we'd be able to kind of create a description, an overall description for what is there.
Well, I think it's easier to create the list based off of the code. So, like I said, if the intent is to have one high canopy native tree, we can make the list so that it doesn't include the non-native high canopy trees. I think it's easier to do it that way than try to work backwards from specifics.
Okay. Well, is that what we want?
I don't know what you want.
I'm asking everybody.
What do you want, Liz? What would you think? What would be the best from a standpoint of urban forestry? And
variety is the best thing from urban forestry standards, right? The more variety, the better. So when we pigeonhole ourselves to, let's say the native tree list for Delaware has 30 species, and half of those aren't species that you would really find in a landscape. Like people don't really plant a sassafras tree, okay? Even though it's or a black walnut, even though they're on the list. So then you take it down and all of a sudden you're at about, 20 trees that you maybe can find in the nursery in the size we need. And then it ends up people choose the same tree species over and over. So do we really want 100 new river birches? Wouldn't it be better if we had 10 river birches, 10 of something else non-native, 10 of something else that's native to the Carolinas? I mean, that's my opinion. As long as
that sounds better. I mean,
as long as they're not invasive, I think the variety is also what makes landscapes interesting. I mean, Katie, when you design a landscape, you don't want to use the same plant over and over and over. I know commercial is a little different because they're going more into the large swaths of singular plants, but part of the fun of landscaping and part of the beauty is the variety. So I hate to, and it feels like right now, the way the code is, we've pigeonholed people into choosing these 10 species of trees, if even that many.
Well, then maybe maybe the list should be written as you would like to see the urban forest take shape.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
then, so if you think that it would be better to have high canopy include native and non-natives, then just make the list like that.
yeah,
And
that's
just say high canopy trees as opposed to native high canopy.
yeah, and then the list is just the native high canopy trees. And if that way, if the tide,
No, she's saying no, to make it broader than just native high canopy.
okay,
right?
Yeah, I mean, if you think that variety would be better as far as high canopy or you know, or are you, I guess, are you saying that high canopy you would rather see all natives, but the other variety tree would be permitted as the other two trees?
I think that's a simpler approach. I mean, but that's not to say, like, I don't think anybody would disagree that somebody should be able to plant a live oak if they so, I mean, who has the space, but if they so wanted to have a live oak. And
Right,
that
right,
wouldn't be considered native to Delaware. So when we design the list, we can go through and say, like, we kind of want native or native to Delaware adjacent species in that high canopy category. And then the other category, we can have a variety. So
Okay.
like that. I'm trying to think. If we
So
wanted to,
there'd be just two lists, the high canopy list and everything else.
yeah, like a golden rain tree. There's one. Where is that native to? Probably somewhere like India or something, China.
Yeah, I think it's
Native
like
somewhere.
Japan or something.
Yeah,
Louise,
let me
you were
see.
you had your hand raised.
I do. I just want to throw
China.
out this
Yep.
thought. I do see this list as an educational tool as well for homeowners. You know, I mean, we do want to teach people more about the value of native trees and how we're building this healthy ecosystem here in Rehoboth. So I'm just hoping we can figure out a way to identify which trees are native and which
We-
are not. I mean, I'm looking at the approved tree list right now, and we don't do that. It's divided into 3 categories: deciduous, evergreen, and small species right now.
Well, I mean,
I
like,
just want to throw that out.
But
I mean,
they're required to be native to be on that list to begin with. That came from
I
the state of
understand that, but
Delaware.
I just want to make sure that it says that on the list, that
Yeah.
they are native.
Well, and the way it's set up now, people have a hard time following the max of 1 small species, max 1/3 evergreen. I mean, that may seem simple to me, but I do it all day, so it's hard to put yourself in the mind of somebody who's going to do it once in 10 years.
Oh, sure. And I think that's where it comes, you know, I think there need to be more conversations with you, Liz, about, you know.
Well, if we
Well-
decide to go this route with just the 2 categories, we could, like the way the list I have now, I think I have a couple of other categories on there, like color or something like that. We can just put like a little checklist columns on the side and have native, non-native, stuff
Mhm.
like that to identify it.
That'd be great.
or
Yeah.
just
that
color
sounds-
code the, oh, sorry.
Yeah, color code it, an
Okay.
asterisk.
Go ahead, Bob.
I think and I think educating homeowners and property owners and the town, I think that's a great idea. And that's obviously what we should be doing. That should be one of our goals. And to do that, I think this tree list can be structured in a way that provides that. Why can't it? I like Liz's idea of structuring this a little differently. I mean, so you have 2 categories. You have an acceptable list of high canopy trees, those that are native and those that are non-native but acceptable. People can choose from them, you know, but encourage at least one of them to be native. of the high canopies. If you're going to put in 2 high canopies, one has to be native. You can say that. And then you have the rest that are native and non-native as well in the lower or the smaller trees and ornamentals, or however you want to do that. I mean, just so that people know the difference between what's acceptable and what's an actual native tree. I'm worried if we put too much emphasis on native trees, we wind up limiting the list significantly for people to put in trees.
Right.
Yeah, and that's
Right.
kind of what I was alluding to, that
Yeah,
now everybody
I agree.
chooses the same few trees over and over. And it's not even just their fault, so to speak, it's also about nursery availability.
Yeah, well, that's,
Right.
yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so it boils down to 2 lists, high canopy and permitted, right? And they'll be noted as to which ones are native and not. But basically, they do have to have 1 high canopy, and they'll have to pick that from a list of high canopy, and then they'll have to have 2 from the other list. Right?
And
Yeah,
the,
Mhm.
the native species on the high canopy could just be color, it could be like written in green as opposed to written in another color. I mean, just so that
Yeah, I think-
stands out as, I
Yeah.
mean, if you want to try to help people understand which ones are native.
Okay, yeah, I'm sure we can.
I mean,
We are going to have to do something to simplify, because as Liz says, it's complicated for
Yeah.
for people
Yeah, but
coming
we
in and
can-
trying to figure
We
it
can
out.
make the
Okay.
list
And
whatever we
actually,
want.
at the beginning, I thought we had lots of time, and now we're using it up rapidly. So if you don't mind, let me move to a couple of things that I feel like are, first of all, the major problems that people have had with the tree ordinance as it exists today, and the fixes, and see what works. I think there's still a couple things unresolved. One of the biggest, and so at the top of the second page is I put, should also discuss adding a provision to allow removal if minimum tree density is maintained and the tree is not a protected tree, and the tree removed is replaced. And that came up in discussion with Liz the other day, and with the example that, and this comes up all the time, somebody's got a yard, it's full of trees, they've got like 30 of them or 20 of them or something, and they say they want to take one out, but because it's near their kitchen window or it's gotten too big or whatever, and they can't take it out, but yet the person next door who's building the new house only has to have 3. And they don't think that's right, that they should have to, that they can't ever take any of theirs out, even though they've got way over the minimum. So, and that's what the sense I have is that's one of the biggest complaints today. That plus the mitigation are like the 2 central complaints. And so this would allow, this flexibility would allow them to remove that tree. The only problem is, I don't know if it gets to solving everybody's problem, because if the tree is big enough, if it's over 8 inches DBH, then it's going to be protected. So by this definition, the protected trees would still not be allowed to come out. But if a tree is removed, say it's a smaller one, and it can get removed, and as long as it's replaced somewhere else on the property, but they've already got 20, they still have to do 21. I don't know. Does this work? Or, what is the balance between letting people take trees out that they want to take out for whatever reason and protecting trees? I don't know.
Well, that's the question that you guys need to answer first is, do we think that people that have more trees on their lots ought to be given more of a free pass? Because the 2 things that I hear the most are, well, I already have a ton of other trees. Well, that doesn't change the way the code treats everybody on equal footing, whether you have 0 trees or 1,000. And then the other thing I hear is, I'll plant whatever you want. And it's funny because it's not what I want, right? But I'll plant whatever you want if you let me take out this tree.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So those are the 2 things I hear all the time. And we have to decide if that matters, if the code should address those and to what extent.
Susan,
It
you
does
bring
sound like wait a minute, hold on. It does say that the tree removed has to be replaced. That sounds like that'd be okay with most people.
Well, and Commissioner Gay, that I'm the one who, I forget, I saw that somewhere. I didn't make this up out of thin air, but I had originally proposed that to the Law Oversight Committee,
Okay.
that we
All right.
choose a size range. And whatever that size range is, you can take out that tree without any other requirement, just getting a permit as long as you replace it. So you hate the purple, you have a purple plum and you hate it because you just don't like purple trees. You bought the house and it was there. Well, you can take it out and put in a dogwood. You can take it out and put in an oak. It doesn't have to be dying, dead, or hazardous.
Right. But it would have to be under 8 inches. It would have to be not protected by definition, right?
No, I always thought like a permit, you should choose a size for a permit, whether that's 6, 8 inches, 8 inches, 4 inches, whatever we have. And then a next size category, if the tree is between 6 inches and 10 inches, you can take it down as long as you replace it. And it just doesn't matter. It doesn't have to meet any other criteria, the dead, hazardous, dying.
Okay.
So it gives you people that inherit trees or people that accidentally let trees grow and all of a sudden they're 8 inches, or people that plant something and realize it was the wrong tree in the wrong place. It gives them a little bit of more leeway to change their mind.
Right. But there's still so is the maximum is 10 inches?
It could be whatever size everybody agrees on. But I mean, you would have to have at least a few inch size range, right? So if the permit required is, what do we change? What's in here? 8 inches?
For protected, yeah.
Yeah, so it would have to be somewhere in the 8 to 12, 14 inch range. Like 8 to 10 doesn't really do anything.
Right, 8 to 14. Okay, let's say 8 to 14.
I mean, or you could lower the 8 inches to 6 and say 6 to 10, whatever it may be. But you need a few inches in there.
Right. What does everybody think about that?
I'm a little confused on so we're protecting trees that are at least 10 inches? I'm a little confused about where we're going.
Well, the general definition of right now of a protected tree is anything over 8 inches DBH.
Right.
But this particular category is for people who already have, they're over the minimum tree density and they want to replace one. So then should the rule be a little different for them where they can take out something that's.
Right. So I have an anecdote from neighbors.
Okay.
You know, they meet the minimum, but they hate their loblollies in front of their house because they drop all those needles, they drop branches on the cars, etc. I mean, would we want to see loblollies cut down?
Well, if they were in the 8 to 12 inch range, they would qualify under this change. But if they were already 25 inches, no.
But that's what I was asking. So if we're so there is so that loblolly would be protected if it's a large one.
Yeah. So basically pick a size at which you feel, whether it's 12 inches, 14 inches, 15, in which a tree isn't, like, to me, a 10-inch tree, you can replace it. It's replaceable to a certain extent. A 30-inch tree is not replaceable.
Okay, that's what I was getting at with my question.
Yeah. Elise, it's a perfect example though. So say they planted the loblollies or they bought the house and the loblollies were there and they were already 9 inches and they were like, wow, we hate these trees. We had a house and we had 20 of them fall and crush the house. I mean, it's a very, very small chance, or we saw this happen to the neighbor. Well, if they were only 9 inches, they could take them out and replace them with the tree they like better.
Okay.
So, but there are still going to be some instances where somebody might have a bigger one and they would not be allowed to take it.
Yes.
So there is still going to be some limitation. Probably.
Right.
But does the committee think that if you have a house that sits in a wooded lot, that you should be able to, with mature trees, that you should be able to clear all those trees out and put in a couple of new canopy trees and a bunch of dogwoods? All 2 inches, right?
No.
Okay, so that's where we give some flexibility on the lower end to the smaller trees, and that'll help some people. But at the end of the day, if you have a wooded lot, it should stay a wooded lot. You shouldn't be able to clear all your trees or take out trees just because you have other trees. There's a line.
The problem is that this doesn't just say, I mean, an example I had heard recently was one person, taking out one tree, but it would apply if you wanted to take out all but 3, right?
Right.
They were.
Well, maybe that should be written into, maybe you have a tree lot, but we have to allow homeowners some we don't want to make homeowners the enemy of
Mhm.
the committee and of the city government. This is a joint exercise. And so I think, I mean, in my opinion, yes, with people with heavily wooded lots should be given a little more freedom in removing certain trees. Surely not clearing the lot, but if they have a tree that doesn't make sense to them, it's in the way. And again, I do think a 25-inch is different than a 15-inch. Okay, so give them some flexibility, and it doesn't always make sense if you tell somebody in a heavily wooded lot that they want to remove one or two trees that don't make sense. That yes, you have to then replace them. I don't think that's always the case. Sometimes it doesn't make sense to replace those trees. Sometimes good stewardship means remove those trees and allowing the other trees to grow and do better. And so I think we need to somehow address that flexibility to homeowners.
I think
That's my
you're getting
opinion.
into a situation where the code just can't cover every single thing. So somebody that has a 60-inch white oak in their front yard and also has a dozen 20-inch oaks, the code can't address that. Now, the way this change that is on here, if you have the 60-inch white oak with a bunch of 8 to 10-inch oaks underneath it, you would be able to take them out and just put them somewhere else on your property, or you go to the park, like the tree commission, and ask for a fee in lieu or whatever we do. But it just, no matter what, a code can't cover every single situation, and that is why we have the appeals board. So we have to keep that in mind.
Right. I do think, though, people with heavily wooded lots should be given some more leeway in cleaning up or taking out certain trees that don't make sense. And of course, I'm talking about permitted and that process. But I mean,
That
I
makes sense.
just think that there's
Yeah, I
this
agree.
issue that we have to be conscious of for people.
Well,
Right.
and then
Give them some-
but here's the question:
And
what does not make sense mean? How do you define what tree doesn't make sense? It gets so difficult.
Yeah, no, I understand. And that's what we have the process in an arborist for. And I think that's what I'm looking for the flexibility with. So a homeowner comes and they say, I want to remove this tree, and it's a 20-inch tree. And we hate it for whatever reason, but there are heavily wooded trees. Can they talk to the arborist, get the permit? You know, the arborist, you can say, yeah, you're right. Tree's not doing well here, or these other trees would do better if we remove that. Let's remove it. But
Well,
do they have to replace it somewhere else on the property?
if it's 20 inches, then whatever the code says. But if it's not doing well, that would be a reason. If it's
Okay.
declining or dying or in poor health, that would be a reason to remove it. So
But
it would already qualify
What
for
if
that.
what if it's interfering with the health of the other trees? Like something's got to give. You have 5 big trees, and as they are maturing, they're going to start to compete with one another. So one should come out so the other floor can really reach their peak of maturity. And then there's something, I live in a heavy wooded area. In my backyard, I never see sunlight. I get moss, I get mold, and I constantly have to deal with it, and it's very difficult. So, I'm not going to, fight with the city. I even planted more trees when I came, but I'm way ahead of the tree committee, where when I first came, I had big, huge oak trees that were literally 6 inches from the house. I cut them all down. I mean, I was forced to, and I replanted a lot of dogwoods, but there's many gardeners out there that want to plant some wildflowers or have some beautiful blooming flowers. So you're restricting people from fully enjoying their garden as well. So, I mean, it's a tough situation.
So I think this is going to have to be written such that there is some sort of
Flexibility.
flexibility, but also giving the arborist the ability to do
Yeah.
some.
But see,
some,
everything you guys are saying would be just, you need something definitive. That is all just opinion.
Yeah.
There's no way to make that not appear capricious when enforcing it. Like
Right.
you need, the code
Right.
kind of has
Yeah,
to be,
that's a good point.
you know,
Thank you, Liz. Yeah.
because, oh, well, I like them better because they love trees. So yeah, I'm going to let them take out this tree because I know they're doing the right thing. Well, this person, I think they really just want to get rid of these trees and they don't care about doing the right thing. So they're going to be denied. That's how it'll appear, whether or not that's how it is.
Yeah.
And just don't forget is that
there needs to be like what you said in the beginning, like that
parameters.
we need to make a decision about like 8 to 14-inch trees can be removed, and just on a heavily wooded lot, 8 to 14-inch trees can be removed with like a specific number, like 3 can be removed without having any repercussions.
You could do a percentage, maybe. I mean, that gets pretty complicated. But I mean, don't forget too, there's something in the code. I'm not sure if it's made it through on this version about the fee in lieu of mitigation being administrative.
Right.
So
Well, in fact, since we're practically out of time, we can go to that fee in lieu of mitigation, because that's the other area that people, and it sounds like what we're going to have to do here is come up with better wording, but also, I mean, that is what the appeals process is for. So, so people can go to the Parks and Shade Tree for some of these more difficult or unique issues. There's always going to be that.
Yeah.
But let me just go to the fee for mitigation, because that's the other thing, of course, it's been considered the biggest problem of the current ordinance is that there's this 1-for-1, replacement on the number of inches. So you take down 30 inches, you got to replace 30 inches. And the goal was to make that a little more realistic, since that's why most cases go to the Parks and Shade Tree. So this also comes, actually, I'm not sure this does come from oversight. It may have come from us, but at any rate, the way it is now is the replacement trees are based on the total DBH of the trees removed, but not on a 1-for-1 basis, rather in categories. So you have less than 12 inches, it just requires one replacement tree. So one, 2-inch replacement tree. If it's 12 to 24, 2 replacement trees. If it's 24 to 36, 3. And if it's more than 36, 4. So what it basically means is no more than 4 replacement trees would ever be required. To me, that seems pretty good and gets around the issue of somebody getting, having to replace 15 trees, not being able to.
Well, just to clarify, Commissioner, majority of permits that get approved don't require plantings, or if they do, it's like 1 or 2 trees. The times in which it's like 30 trees only happen a couple of times a year. And it's usually in cases where they're building a new house and they're putting, taking out like 3 gigantic trees and leaving nothing on the lot.
Right. Yeah.
So we have to think like a recent case, say it was, I'll just make this up. Say they would have had to plant 20 trees, obviously not suitable for 20 trees to realistically do well. Mm-hmm. So, they would have to pay maximum $5,000 or $10,000 currently. Now it would be, however many trees, let's say 3 trees, it'd be 12. So 12 times 1,200. So it would be actually more money than currently, probably.
No, because you go down to the fee. That's the other thing I was going to get. If no more than 4 would ever be required.
Per tree.
Maximum,
For each protected tree. So if you took down 3 40-inch trees, it would be 12 trees.
No. But this is based on total DBH of the removed trees.
For each protected tree removed. That's how it reads. Per tree, not total DBH.
No, it does.
Well, the plan was for it to be the total DBH.
Well, when we talked about it with law oversight, it was always per tree, and this says for each protected tree removed, the quantity of replacement trees shall be determined as follows. DBH of removed tree, not DBH.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
No.
Well, we're not going to solve this today.
No.
Should it be total and not for each protected tree? But
I think if it's total, you need to go way higher than 4.
okay.
I mean,
okay.
unless we think somebody removing 100 inches of trees should only have to plant 4 trees.
So the each protected is in there for a good reason. Okay. So if they're removing a huge tree, they have to do 4 little ones, but if they're removing 2 huge trees, they have to do 8 smaller ones, and then they might end up, if they can't do it on their property, they'd go and pay a fee. And yeah, so the 1,200, we settled, the 1,200 actually comes from this group as the
Right.
actual cost of planting and maintaining for a year a new tree. That's where that dollar figure came from.
And it seems reasonable.
Yeah, so.
Well, when
Okay.
you consider the lifetime cost of a tree, 1,200 is pretty reasonable fee in
Right.
lieu.
No, I mean, I think that's a good, I think that's a good rate.
Say it's pretty reasonable.
Oh, and there's nothing wrong with it being somewhat of a deterrent.
Right, yeah.
No,
that's-
for sure.
Yeah, so it can't be punitive, but it's based on actual cost. So I think
And-
we hit a good
exactly,
price.
yeah. So somebody might think it's punitive, but that's part of the education process to say, no, this is really the actual
Right.
cost of planting and maintaining, because the city would be taking that money and putting a tree somewhere else, and that's what it would cost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that, part of what I read in the notes is that, a provision that does not allow for the appeal of the denial of a, tree removed on the city property. I think that that's good.
Yeah, I hadn't realized how many were coming to Parks and Shade Tree these days on that. So that was Liz's suggestion. I think it's a good one. Well, I would invite, because we're probably they're gonna kick us off in a minute. So I would invite anybody, anything else, any other comments about this, to please let me know. It's obviously not it's not going forward today or tomorrow. We've still got a little bit of time, but we may not be discussing it in this group again. So, by all means, send me whatever you got. And what do you think? You think we're getting there?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
we are.
With Liz's help, I think.
Yeah,
we're-
exactly.
Well, let me say
With a
some
lot of Liz's
encouraging
help.
words that it took
Yeah.
the Law Oversight Committee, 2.5 years of meetings where they did exclusively this. So you may not have a perfect finished product, but I think you've made pretty fast progress on it. Obviously not reinventing the wheel, but we don't need to.
Right. We don't need to. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, well, let's see, going back, are there any other, comments, or what did I do with my agenda? There it is. Any committee member comments? Then I guess,
Oh, yes.
right,
Join me volunteers for September. I'm getting through to do a little watering at the school. Anybody up for a little September watering?
I can if somebody shows me how to do it, because I haven't done it yet. You didn't need me when I volunteered before.
I can do it.
I
It's
can
still,
do it, but I don't know how.
it has to be
Robert,
on the,
I will take you up, and you do not have to do a Wednesday. I'll let you do a Thursday or a Friday. How's that? Could you get in touch with me, and I will schedule you right up, Robert?
okay.
You guys,
Okay.
Well,
Andrea,
it is better in pairs, so, Thursday or Friday is better for me too, so maybe.
Oh,
maybe
okay,
Bob,
we'll
we can
move it to
coordinate.
Thursday.
Andrea,
Okay.
you guys are
I will-
That's
skipping,
a long
right?
hose to deal with.
Yes, it is. It is. Now you have to do Tuesdays. Liza, are you going to be here at all?
No, I won't be until the end of September.
Okay.
Am I going
all
to
right.
come in on like a Saturday to do some just like chores in the city, but then I'm right out the door
Okay.
again.
Okay.
Well, Andrea, you guys don't water when we have significant rain though, right?
No.
Okay. You'll probably get lucky in September. I mean, honestly, I think we get usually 3 or 4 inches of rain in September, and all you really need is about an inch a week for the trees. So
All right. Well,
Okay.
you might get lucky. I mean,
I'll
it could be
order on the
dry.
Rainy days.
Well, I just want to thank everybody that has watered because they're looking good. So, I will take, Susan, I will take you up on that. Katie, I'm giving you a pass because I know you're very busy. So,
Yeah, I'll talk to you about my dates. I know that first week right after Labor Day, I know I'm there like Wednesday through the
okay,
second. So-
all right. I'll be in touch with the three of you, and you, Elise, you're with Joan, right? So you've got your
Yeah.
two.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm available probably after Labor Day. It's fine.
Okay, perfect. I'll be in touch, everybody. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
And I'll circle back to everybody for items for future agendas. The next meeting would be on the, since this one was a week delayed, like we've done a few times, but the next one is scheduled to be I think it's the 10th of September. Is that a good day for everybody?
Well, virtual, yes.
Okay, I think it'll be, that's the sense I have, is it'll be virtual. I guess I can't say that definitively, but that's the sense I have.
Susan, when you have a chance, can you send me the list of for commemorative trees? In fact, I found how to do the Google Maps where like they do like the shark sightings, well, they'll have a little shark so you can hit on it. So I thought, is that what you're talking about? And I thought of doing it in reverse. So if it's like Lisa Trey donated a tree and you highlight my name, it'll show you where the tree is. And if you
no, because the donors aren't identified with specific trees. That's
oh,
part
they're
of
not.
the-
Okay. All right. Okay. That'll make it a lot easier.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Make it a lot easier. But we can list the donors on the side, correct?
Absolutely. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay. Well, if there's nothing else, I guess. So September 10th works for most everybody. Yep.
Yes.
I'll keep you
Yes.
posted on whether it's virtual, and otherwise, I guess the meeting's adjourned.
Okay.
Okay, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Bye.
everybody.